North Carolina's win over Duke just keeps getting sweeter and sweeter as the days go by. It's like a fine wine, just ages with time. Duke, on the other hand, is just getting pettier by the day. We had Watergate, we had Deflategate, now we got handshake-gate. What are we doing? We're going to talk about it, plus my defense of Leaky Black and Coach Hubert Davis in the All-ACC voting, and the postseason ramifications of Carolina's win over Duke. All of that coming up today on this edition of Locked on Tar Heels.
You are Locked on Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. Welcome into the Locked on Tar Heels podcast, part of the Locked on family of podcasts. I am your host, Isaac Schade, and it is such a good day to be together. I want to thank you for making Locked on Tar Heels your first watch and your first listen every single day. Please don't forget that we are free and available on every podcast platform and YouTube. Speaking of which, if you're new here, welcome. So glad that you have found us at Locked on Tar Heels. Lots of new people coming to the podcast following the win over Duke, and as we get into March Madness and all the postseason brouhaha. So glad you are here. Hunker down, folks. It is the most wonderful time of the year. And in fact, today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. Also, as a reminder, coming up on tomorrow's show, one of the things we're going to do is I'm going to try to figure out where this win over Duke should exist in the pantheon of Carolina regular season victories. I've had a lot of people sharing their list with me and would love for you to do that too. You can reach out on Twitter, send an email to the show page, or anything like that. I'll share all that contact information with you at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that. Also, my favorite thing about the Duke win, the Carolina win over Duke that's been happening in the last couple days is not just all the wonderful things for Carolina, it's the adulation pouring in from other teams. Here's an example. This is from somebody that sent me a text. On behalf of the entire Kentucky fan base, thank you for giving Coach K the perfect going away present at Cameron Indoor. I mean, that has got to be one of the most satisfying wins for Carolina ever, right? Beating K, their old enemy, in his final game in Durham by double digits, securing your spot in the tournament in the process after months of media puff pieces and tributes and insufferable commercials praising K. I mean, you had Chris Carrawell snubbing Hubert Davis in the handshake line, Duke fans crying everywhere, celebrities regretting dropping all that money on tickets, K upset and scolding the crowd in a post-game ceremony salt fest. It's too good. That's direct from a Kentucky fan to my text messages. That's awesome. How cool that Carolina is bringing the nation together around a common enemy. Speaking of Chris Carrawell, that's where we're starting today. Handshake-gate. It's everywhere. I don't know why it's everywhere, but we got to talk about it. We got to unpack it. So let's get into it. You've seen the clip. If you haven't, go to my Twitter page. You can find it in the post-game handshake line. Chris Carrawell just blows right past Coach Davis. Coach Davis gives him the, what? What are you doing? Did that really just happen? And so that's what's going on. So first off, we got to start here. You ever watched a movie and somebody makes a dumb choice and it's like, hey, if you would have just made the right choice here, none of the rest of this movie has to exist and I didn't have to pay my good money for it? That's exactly what's going on here. If Chris Carrawell, after the fact, had just said, hey, you know what? I was really super bummed that Coach K lost that game, and I had never even considered that we would lose to you guys. I was caught up in the moment. I made a bad mistake. My bad. I'm sorry. Guess what happens then? Nobody's talking about handshake-gate. It's over. It's done with. It's a thing that it was a thing for a day, and then it's gone. That way, you've ended the issue rather than pouring gasoline on it and igniting this brouhaha whole thing. And you've made it this big, huge, stupid thing that then Hubert Davis has to address at his press conference on Tuesday. Duke folks end up making two really big excuses to try to explain this away. Everybody's tripping over themselves to figure this out. So Duke's like, here's why we acted like petulant children instead of just resolving this like the grown men who were supposed to be setting for examples for the young men playing the game on the court. Instead, they've tried to make it a thing, and they say, well, you know what? Coach Davis snubbed us pregame. Come on, man. That is lame-o excuse number one from Duke. You know why? Did you see what was happening on the court pregame? Hubert Davis was lucky just to get out of Carolina's tunnel and onto the court. And you know what he did do? He shook the hands of the man of the hour. He and Coach K. It's documented. They're shaking hands. I don't have time to be shaking hands with Chris Carrawell and all the assistant coaches, but I did kiss the ring. I went to the man. That's good enough, right? It's got to be. Okay, that's excuse number one. Excuse number two, did you see this SI headline? It reads, report, people inside Duke program upset that North Carolina didn't honor Coach K. The SI's tweet that introduced this article says this: Duke is apparently not happy that UNC didn't honor Coach K in Chapel Hill last month. By the way, that article came out after Carolina won this game on Saturday. So that means the game is over. Duke is still dwelling on this. And you know, that's fine that you're upset, Duke, but if it's me, I don't know, maybe I'm a little more concerned with winning basketball games than if somebody honored me, which, by the way, Carolina did. They didn't go out of their way and make a whole thing and a plaque and a scholarship and tripping over themselves to do it. But there was a nice little photo of Coach Williams, Coach K, Coach Shire, and Coach Davis on the video board. It was acknowledged. You wouldn't want it to be more than that in your rival's gym. You know why? If they do some big thing, the entire Smith Center is booing out of their minds at you. I think Carolina handled this in the classiest way they could. So Duke, why are you getting your panties all in a bunch when Carolina is helping you out here? Instead, Duke acting this way, it's a clear indication to me that they're more concerned with the spectacle of it all. They're more concerned with appearances and the show and the event rather than winning basketball games. This is why you see Duke every offseason bragging about winning the social media battle and all their followers, or winning recruiting battles, or, you know, we win the offseason. Great. How about you actually win postseason things? Because last time I checked, this is your first outright regular season ACC championship since, 2006? Yeah. How about trying to win on the court? That'd be better. I don't know. Isn't that what the game is about, after all? And by the way, if Duke is so worried about Carolina honoring Coach K in his retirement on Carolina's home court, maybe it would have been a great gesture for Duke to honor Coach Williams on their home court. They didn't have the opportunity last year to do so because Coach Williams bowed out gracefully. But you want us to honor Coach K, but what are you doing for Coach Williams? Nothing? Okay, cool. Just wanted to check in about that. Oh, and by the way, if Duke wins this game, you think Chris Carrawell is blowing by Coach Davis? No, absolutely not. Daps all around, right? Okay. In the midst of this, you know who I want on my side? I want someone who rises above the fray. I want someone who sets a positive example for his team of how to healthily handle conflict when it arises. Something like this.
No, I actually had a conversation with John Shire yesterday and also Chris Carrawell, and I had two great conversations with both of them. My relationship with Coach K and the rest of the coaching staff before the game was in a great spot, and it's in a great spot right now. And I really enjoyed my conversations with John and also Chris, and at the end of our conversations, we both wished each other luck for the remainder of the season.
See what Coach Davis did there? He deflated the situation. He went directly to the source instead of whining about it in the media or third hand or whatever. But some coaches just seem to relish being pot stirrers. There's just no need. When you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old impressionable young men, you know what you do need? You need a leader. You need a head man who can lead these young men. I'm glad that Carolina has one of those on their side. That same leader, you know what? He was dishonored and discounted by the ACC voters, as was Leaky Black. Why so? My defense of Leaky Black and Coach Davis in just a moment, but first let me tell you about Built Bar. Built Bars are great candy bar replacement options covered in 100% real chocolate. Some of the great flavors include mint brownie, coconut almond, and new coming out is white chocolate cookies and cream. I think I've seen something for St. Patrick's Day that looked green and awesome. I'm excited to find out more about that. All these flavors are delicious, new flavors coming out all the time. At Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, and then they go back after the fact and make it healthy for you and all that stuff. Not sure how they pull it off, but they always do. Typical candy bars weigh in anywhere between 200 to 300 calories, but most Built Bars have just 130. In addition to that, just 4 grams of sugar, only 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. That's great. So go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and you're going to get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Let me also tell you about Stat Hero. As I said earlier, it's the most wonderful time of the year. This coming Sunday is Selection Sunday, and then all the March Madness awesomeness kicks in to full gear. Stat Hero's NCAA single game pick'em pits the star players against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. Take control back from those handicappers who always seem to have the upper hand. Start focusing on the players you know best with a gameplay that doesn't rely on big spreads, long odds, or funky props. Stat Hero gives you the advantage, resulting in their gamers winning 4 times more often. Why? Because Stat Hero eliminates the mystery about who or what you are going up against. In addition to their pick'em games, they also have dozens of lineups you can comb through to take on head-to-head. They simply post sets of players and then you choose your lineup and go at it. Stat Hero is the easiest and fastest way to get your sports action fix. The simple and sleek gameplay will have you playing in minutes. This is what daily fantasy was meant to be. Sign up for free right now at stathero.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. Again, that's stathero.com/lockedon. Use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% match. Terms and conditions apply. All right, in defense, see what I did there? Of Leaky Black. Defense, Leaky Black, they go together. In defense of Leaky Black and Coach Hubert Davis. Before we talk about that, let me tell you about Locked On's Bracket Breakdown Show. That's tough to say. Bracket Breakdown Show. Make sure to check it out. Coming on March 14th, the day after Selection Sunday, it'll drop right here into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast feed and YouTube channel. College basketball experts Chris Gordy, Andy Patton, and betting expert Lee Sterling give you in-depth breakdowns on every single matchup. All right, back to this all-ACC voting. I still think Armando Bacot should have won. Alondes Williams, great season. But he did not lead the league in scoring like people thought he was going to do. So it didn't happen. That's cool. Anyway, I'm here right now to talk about Leaky Black and Coach Davis. Let's start with Leaky. Here are the top 5 leading scorers at the end of the season in ACC play. Buddy Boeheim, 19.3. Williams, 19.3. Michael DeVoe, 18.0. Cameron McGusty, Miami, 17.5. Darion Sebron from NC State, 17.3. You might recognize several of those names as guys that Leaky Black shut down or held way under their season average, like Buddy Boeheim, for example. Sebron? No. Homeboy had only one single-digit scoring game all season. You know who that was against? Leaky Black. And essentially really had one the second time Carolina beat up on NC State. It's just that he scored a bunch of points in trash time at the end of the second game there. AJ Griffin further down the scoring chart for the ACC, but had a monster game the first time around against North Carolina when they were still trying to figure out how they wanted to defend Duke. This time with Leaky Black on him, go check the box score. You'll see what happened. Now, you might recall Defensive Player of the Year. It went to Mark Williams of Duke. Second in Defensive Player of the Year voting went to Reese Beekman from Virginia. And third was Leaky Black. Same order for the all ACC defensive team. 1, 2, 3, Williams, Beekman, Leaky Black. That's your order right there. So when you look at just the counting stats, just those obvious defensive stats that everyone defaults to when they're looking for great defensive players, yes, Mark Williams leads the ACC with 2.8 blocks per game. He had 87 in his 31 games. Yes, Reese Beekman led the ACC with 2.1 steals per game. So guess who finished 1-2 in the Defensive Player of the Year voting? I just told you it was those two guys who led the league in blocks and who led the league in steals. Great, that's fine. But you know who Mark Williams doesn't guard? Any of those top scorers at the top of the list. The highest scorer on that list he guards is Armando Bacot. All Mark Williams does is stand under the basket and get help side blocks when one of his guys gets blown by. You know who Mark Williams isn't guarding? Anybody else awesome in the paint outside of Armando Bacot, because every awesome other big man in the country is chilling out in the Big Ten. Holy cow, they have a cavalcade of insanely good big men in the Big Ten. You think Mark Williams is doing all that against Kofi Cockburn? Not a chance. Oh, and by the way, he does guard Armando Bacot. You know what Bacot did Saturday night against the Defensive Player of the Year? 23 points on 10 of 11 shooting. Carolina uses pick and roll all night against him, and Armando Bacot is having his way. But good news, at least a third of the voters already had their votes in before Saturday night. Now, I know one game out of 20 in the conference season doesn't make it, but that's a thing. You know what Reese Beekman and Mark Williams can't do? Guard 1 through 4. Mark Williams can guard 5s, sometimes immobile 4s. Beekman can guard some 1s and 2s and maybe an occasional undersized 3. But my man Leaky Black, he's guarding 1, 2, 3, or 4 with success on a night in and night out basis. So sure, with Beekman, with Williams, maybe their defensive efficiency numbers are better than Leaky's, but they aren't being asked to guard a team's best scorer on literally an every game basis, night in and night out. And you've seen the numbers. You know what Leaky did to those top scorers. Yeah, they still got there sometimes, but it was infinitely more difficult, or they were held below their scoring, or they got theirs, but it took them 37 shots to get there. Here's the bottom line for me in the defensive conversation. On the offensive side of basketball, we have very easily understandable metrics and stats for offense, right? Johnny Q basketball fan can understand all of that. But defense doesn't have that same digestible level of content. Blocks? Yeah, I get that. I block a shot. Steals? Yes, great defensive play. Sometimes it's because you gambled and were out of position, but cool. We'll give it to you. And then, yes, there are several next level defensive metrics to help people understand and try to quantify defensive capability. But it's not yet mainstream in such a way that every basketball fan is talking about it and understanding it. And so, how do we quantify top defenders beyond just defaulting to, oh, you had a bunch of blocks, you're the guy. You had a bunch of steals, let's vote you. We have to stop defaulting to that. And sports stats people, I'm going to include myself in here because I love stats. I do a lot with it. We have to find better and more easily digestible and more easily palatable defensive metrics to show Johnny Q basketball fan who the defensive studs are. That's why Leaky Black doesn't win this award. But you know what? Maybe next year. What about Coach Davis? 1 vote for ACC Coach of the Year. And I have it on good authority that vote is from no other than Jones Angell, the voice of the Tar Heels. Now, I get Coach Forbes and Mike Brady getting quite a few votes. They're expected to have bad teams, but they didn't, and that's what people vote for. And Coach K, it's his last year, so people are going to vote for him. He finished second, even though, for my money, he did a little bit with a lot, right? But honestly, with Coach Forbes, Wake finished fifth. Why is he getting 40 of the 78 votes? I get it. They're expected to be awful, and they finished in the top third of the conference. Yay, good job. And honestly, though, in this era of transfer portal things, it is so hard to know from one year to the next what a team is going to look like. Preseason judgments are such a crapshoot now, and so take Wake, for instance. You know who transferred into their team this year? Little guy I like to call Alondis Williams, who was voted as the ACC Player of the Year. I didn't say he was the ACC Player of the Year. I said he was voted ACC Player of the Year. But you know what that can do when you transfer in the ACC's who ends up being the second leading scorer and first leader in assists? Your team gets substantially better. Yeah, I'm not saying coaching doesn't have anything to do with that, but my man Alondis Williams helps a little bit. Now, I'm not saying Coach Forbes isn't a good coach. He's a great coach. But that's not all him. And by the way, why is Jim Larrañaga only getting 3 votes? Miami had a fantastic year. I thought he should have been higher too. It's not just Coach Davis. Here's what it all boils down to. The ACC has got to change this voting process. Votes right now, you might, if you listened to yesterday's show, you know this. If you didn't, stop, go back and listen to my explanation of the voting process and how all that unfolds. But everyone's votes are due Sunday around lunchtime. That's, in some cases, it's less than 24 hours after most teams' final game of the season. Why on earth can we not push that vote being due later in ACC Tournament week, or even just 24 hours later into Monday, so teams have the voters, head coaches, and media members have a chance to let the dust settle just a little bit more perspective maybe on, hey, what happened Saturday and how does that play into this larger narrative? It might not change people's votes much, but I tell you what, Hubert Davis without a vote, without a win at Duke, looks a lot different than Hubert Davis with a win at Duke, and I'm guessing he gets more than Jones Angell's votes in that scenario. So that perhaps could give us a more well-rounded and balanced voting mechanism. But, maybe even a little more time to explain to the voters how the process works. Because as my source that we talked about yesterday said, a lot of people were probably a bit confused about how to actually do it. You know what? I'm going to wash my hands of it. Because at the end of the day, it's not Bacot or Davis or Love or Manek that matters. It's about what happens on the front of the jersey and how they perform this weekend in Brooklyn and then going forward in March. North Carolina has a postseason job to go do, and those boys are hungry. So let's get after it. Speaking of which, how did the Duke victory affect Carolina's postseason outlook? More on that in a moment, but first, let me tell you about Run Your Pool. March Madness, as I said, Selection Sunday is this Sunday, and then we get started next Thursday. That's 8 days from now. That means you need to start thinking about where you're going to be running your brackets this year. Are you going for the usual, or are you going for the best? We've done our homework here at Locked On, and we're running our brackets with runyourpool.com. Along with standard brackets, Run Your Pool offers 4 other March Madness game types like Survivor or Pick X, which are awesome and a great opportunity to try if you don't like the same old, same old. All of these have all sorts of great scoring editing options. They offer more intel to help you make informed picks, all stuff that you're not going to find at ESPN or CBS. Plus, they offer full white glove customer support, custom branding, and one of the easiest 3-minute setups I've ever seen. Clearly, we believe in Run Your Pool here at Locked On because, like I said, we're running our brackets there. There's no truer test than a satisfied customer. If you want to play against us for a shot at a cash prize, you can join us at runyourpool.com/lockedon. And while you're there, go ahead and create your own pool for your friends and family and coworkers. Enter Pure Madness at checkout for $10 off your custom pool. All the rules and details are going to be available there. Again, that's runyourpool.com/lockedon for your chance to win a cash prize. We look forward to seeing you there. Let me also tell you more about Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models of cars, it's nearly impossible for your local auto parts store to stock everything that you need. Why have to go through all those questions you know that you don't know the answers to as an auto owner? Hey, is that Pilot EX, EXL, LX, or Touring? I don't know, check the manual. And then you gotta wait while a salesman tries to find the parts to order, when instead you could just go to rockauto.com and find it for yourself in a few simple and easy steps. Rock Auto is a family-run business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. That consistency is something you can believe in. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer, and their inventory has everything you need. Save time and money when you use Rock Auto. Go explore their easy-to-use website today and find the solution for all your auto part needs. Brake pads, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices. All the parts your car will ever need. That's rockauto.com. Well, Carolina, you might have heard, went into Cameron Indoor Stadium, and you know what they did? They ruined a retirement party. 94-81 Tar Heels, and that moves Carolina, what we all believe is firmly now into the NCAA tournament field. We want to talk about all of that. What does that win mean for the ACC tournament? What does that mean win for the NCAA tournament and Carolina seeding and all that? Let's take those one at a time, starting with the ACC tournament. First off, you need to know that on Tuesday evening, Louisville beat Georgia Tech, and so that means now Louisville will take on Virginia on Wednesday, and so Carolina will play one of those two schools. So we're narrowing that potential pool down from 3 teams now down to 2. I want to remind you, as we get into this conversation, the Duke win is about so much more than just ruining Coach K's retirement party, than upsetting Duke's special day, which, by the way, thanks again, Kansas, thanks again, Texas, for going to overtime beforehand and forcing people to not be able to see that ridiculous display before the game. ESPN, what are you doing? Thanks for helping in that endeavor. But bigger than just beating Duke, bigger than upsetting that whole circus, Carolina has essentially cemented their NCAA tournament status. But the biggest thing that win does is it means that this week, ACC tournament week, is infinitely less stressful now. Carolina at this point is playing with house money. Had they not beaten Duke, you're still feeling like you're in pretty good shape, but you do not want to be losing in that first game on Thursday to either Louisville or Virginia and putting yourself essentially at the mercy of the selection committee, who's probably not going to look very favorably on you at that point. However, because of beating Duke, I personally believe, win or lose on Thursday, whomever Carolina's opponent is, the Tar Heels are dancing. They're in the field. But you know what? When the pressure's off, why not go win a game or two? Why not work at moving your seating to a better spot when the brackets are revealed on Sunday? I think that'd be great. So the question is, can you string together a win or 2 or 3 to boost your resume and ultimately therefore your seed? Here's the other thing that I think about as the ACC regular season schedule has wound to a close now. Did you look at the final standings? You know how many games Carolina was back of Duke? 1. That Pittsburgh loss at home was already painful. Had Carolina won that game and then everything else still played out the same way, the Tar Heels would have shared the regular season championship with Duke, which A is awesome because that means Carolina has a share of the regular season, and it also means Duke has not won an outright regular season championship since 2006. That's pretty funny. And that's why they always try to make a big deal about the ACC tournament, because they don't have the wherewithal in the one and done era to have the consistency to win in the ACC regular season. You know what? I digress. That's good. The other thing, as we think about the ACC tournament, when you look back at the way the Duke game was won by Carolina, that is not going to be sustainable in a tournament scenario, especially the conference tournament scenario where it's literally back to back to back. Carolina just simply cannot play the 5 starters that level for 3 straight days. Maybe 1 or 2 of the guys could take on a really big load, but you can't play 5 guys for 35 plus minutes, including all 20 minutes of the second half. That is just not sustainable. Carolina is going to have to figure out a way to do that. But you've seen what Coach Davis has done all season. He's not going to change it up now in any sort of massive way. But big chance in the ACC tournament to bump up that seed for the NCAA tournament. So let's shift our gear there a little bit. Again, reminder, I'm going to preview Carolina's Thursday matchup on tomorrow's show once we know more firmly who it is. And then obviously, once we get to next week, we're going to preview whatever Carolina's draw is for the NCAA tournament. Here's my thing that I think about with seeding and based on what happens in the ACC tournament. If you're Carolina, you really want to do everything you can to stay away from an 8 or 9. Honestly, I would kind of rather lose on Thursday and be like 10 or 11 than be an 8 or a 9. And then that way, if you can win your first game, then you don't have to face a top number 1 seed in your second game. But honestly, rather than that, I'd rather win a couple games in the ACC tournament and then bump up to a 7, maybe even a 6. Who knows how far Carolina could climb if they do well in the ACC tournament. Just looking around at some of the higher bracketology places, currently an 8 at ESPN and 11 at CBS. Again, I would rather prefer that 11 to the 8, but you know what? Remember 2000? Carolina, they were in that 8-9 game. You know where they went? Final Four. There's a guy named Ed Cota at the helm of that team. He ain't showing up, but it can happen, right? It's not out of the realm of possibility, but you really want to stay away from 8-9. Here is my biggest postseason question in specific for the NCAA tournament. In their win over Duke on Saturday, Carolina did one of 2 things, and I'm not sure yet which it is. We're going to have to wait and see. Either they poured out everything that they possibly had physically, mentally, emotionally, and they emptied their tanks. Or they had won 4 in a row. They just kept that train running and prepared themselves to go on an epic March run. When you think about emptying the tanks, think back to like 05-06 is what I would compare it to. Carolina, the team after the national championship, goes into Cameron Indoor Stadium on senior night, J.J. Redick, and wins. An incredible game, another one that nobody expected them to win. Another coronation moment for Duke that went wrong. Now, keep in mind, Carolina was ranked 10th heading into that ACC tournament, coming off of that win. They did get by Virginia, but then they lost to BC in the semifinals of the ACC tournament. Granted, BC was 7 in the nation that year. I don't know how that's a thing, but they were. And then in the NCAA tournament, Carolina just never looked the same. They were a 3 seed. They got by Murray State, their team they played in the first round, 14th seeded Murray State, but only beat them by 4. And then second round, we know they lost to George Mason, 65-60. But George Mason had an incredible run. Carolina, I just think that was an example of emptying the tank, mentally, emotionally, physically. On the other hand, maybe Carolina's ramping up to something. And who am I to say that these guys can't go out and play nutso minutes and keep it going? You know what happened in 2011? UConn, 9-9 in the Big East. They go to the Big East tournament, have to win 5 games in 5 days. They do it. Big East champions. Then they go to the NCAA tournament, have to win all 6 games. They do it. Do you remember what Kemba Walker did? Here's how many minutes he played in those 11 games. Big East tournament, 36, 36, 40, 45, 33. NCAA tournament, 35, 39, 40, 40, 40, 37 in the national championship game. Yikes. In those 11 games, played at least 40 minutes, 5 of the 11 of them, including all 45 minutes of the overtime semifinal game in the Big East. Man, we need to go back and relive that. What a great run that was. And that happened in the span of less than a month, those 11 games. Why can't Carolina do that? Why can't they catch fire? Maybe they emptied their tank. Maybe they're going to go on a run. This team has been so up and down, so back and forth. Who knows what it's going to be? But I can't wait to find out what it is. And when you think of Coach running out, like maybe he'll run out more subs and try to save the legs of the starters. I mean, maybe a little bit more. But you've seen the lineups and substitutions all season. He's not going to change what he's doing now all of a sudden when Carolina's been finding a lot of success. I don't think we're going to see what I've been calling them the Cal Ripken 5. We're not going to see that again like we did on Saturday. But those starters are going to keep seeing the bulk of the minutes. Maybe get some Puff Johnson, some Dontrez Styles sprinkled in. But Kerwin Walton's been relegated to the bench, period, like not getting in. Maybe some spot minutes or seconds for DeMarco Dunn or Justin McCoy if there's foul trouble. But I don't really see it going beyond those first 7, maybe even those first 6. But regardless of where things are at with all that playing time and everything, you know what this team's doing? Just like a great Roy Williams team would do, they are peaking into form. This Hubert Davis Tar Heels team, they are rounding into form at just the right moment. They've won 5 in a row, 11 of 13. Let's just wait and see what happens. March is a magical time, and you never know what can happen over the course of one special month. Just ask Kemba Walker. That's it for today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels. Please, again, go subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, or if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe there and hit that bell. Please follow the show on Twitter. Remember, I said that's a great place to drop your 5 most important Carolina regular season wins at Locked on Heels, or you can send it to me directly at Isaac Schade right there. You can email the show lockedontarheels@gmail.com. You can send me your guesses or your thoughts there. And if you like what you're hearing, please share the show with a friend. There's a great community building and just want to keep growing and going with that. So, coming up on tomorrow's show, we are going to answer that question I just talked about. Where does this Duke win fall in the all-time list of greatest regular season wins in Carolina history? And it'll be time to preview the Tar Heels' first ACC Tournament game. Again, either Virginia or Louisville will take care of that. Thank you so much for making Locked on Tar Heels your first listen every day. Now, I want to ask you to make your second listen Locked on NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Thanks so much for spending part of your Wednesday with me talking Carolina sports. And I want to remind you, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Until tomorrow, peace!